The shooting range was buzzing with energy that afternoon. Targets were lined up, rifles were polished, and a group of self-proclaimed experts stood together, laughing and showing off their skills. They wore confidence like armor, loud in both their voices and their pride. Among them, a woman quietly walked in, carrying no flashy gear, no expensive rifle, just a simple old case tucked under her arm. She didn't look like she belonged in their world of bravado and noise. The moment they noticed her, the whispers started. Some smirked, others chuckled openly, their words sharp with sarcasm. To them, she looked too ordinary, too out of place to even hold a weapon, let alone compete. "Probably just here to watch," one of them muttered, and the group laughed. But the woman remained calm, her eyes steady as she set her case on the bench. Curiosity mixed with arrogance as the men leaned closer, waiting to see what this stranger would do. Every move she made was slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. She carefully opened the case, revealing nothing fancy, just a simple, well-worn firearm that had clearly seen years of use. The men scoffed louder now, calling it outdated and worthless. To them, it was a joke. How could that old thing compare to their sleek, modern rifles? But the woman didn't respond. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself. Instead, she adjusted her stance, exhaled slowly, and prepared to fire. The range fell quieter, though the mocking still lingered at the edges. Everyone watched, waiting for her to fail, certain she would miss. Then came the single shot, a sound so sharp, so precise, that it seemed to slice through the laughter. And in that instant, every smirk faded. But what exactly happened at that target left the entire range stunned in silence. For a few long seconds, nobody said a word. The echo of her shot seemed to hang in the air, heavier than the gunpowder itself. The men glanced at one another, their grins faltering, but pride kept them from admitting what they had just witnessed. One of them cleared his throat and laughed nervously, trying to brush it off as luck. "Beginner's chance," he muttered, though his eyes kept darting back to the target. Behind the glass, the range master slowly walked forward to check the board. Even from a distance, it was clear the bullet had landed dead center, cleaner and straighter than anything the group had managed all day. The men who had spent hours boasting about their skills now shifted uneasily, their bravado cracking at the edges. The woman, however, didn't even smile. She calmly lowered her weapon, adjusted it back into the old case, and stood there in silence. Her presence was almost unnerving, as if she carried a story that no one else in the room could quite understand. The simple firearm she held looked even more out of place now, not because it was old, but because it suddenly seemed powerful in her hands. Whispers started spreading across the range. Some of the onlookers leaned in closer, wondering who she was. Was she a retired professional, a military veteran, or perhaps just someone who had practiced in solitude, far away from all the noise and arrogance of others? The lack of answers only added to the tension. The group of snobby shooters refused to back down. Their pride demanded another round, another chance to prove themselves. But the woman gave nothing away. With steady eyes and a calm demeanor, she simply waited, leaving everyone to wonder if her first shot had only been the beginning. The tension in the shooting range only grew heavier as the men tried to laugh off their unease. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped forward with a smug grin. He loaded his rifle with extra flair, determined to prove that the woman's perfect shot was nothing more than a fluke. The others cheered him on, their voices louder now, as if volume alone could cover the doubt creeping into their minds. When he fired, his bullet struck close to the center, but not quite perfect. The crowd clapped politely, yet the difference between his shot and hers was clear. His face flushed, and he quickly insisted on another attempt. The woman, calm as ever, didn't react. She simply stood in place, her posture unshaken, as though she had seen this exact performance many times before. Meanwhile, whispers moved through the onlookers. Some wondered if she was deliberately holding back a deeper skill. Others speculated about her past. Was she trained, or was this something she had mastered alone, away from the spotlight? A few even began to root for her silently, drawn to the quiet dignity she carried in the face of open mockery. As the group continued their noisy showmanship, their arrogance began to clash with one another. Each man wanted to prove himself as the best, but none could deny the weight of her earlier shot. Their laughter turned sharper, more forced, and a subtle rivalry grew between them, adding another layer to the unfolding drama. Through it all, the woman remained still, her eyes steady on the targets. She didn't taunt, didn't gloat, didn't rise to their level. Her silence spoke louder than their words, leaving everyone to wonder just how much more she was capable of, and when she would finally choose to reveal it. The air inside the shooting range felt charged, almost electric. Every eye was fixed on the woman, yet she remained calm. Her steady composure, a stark contrast to the restless energy of the men around her. They had fired round after round, each one landing close to the center, but never quite achieving the perfection of her single shot. Their frustration was no longer hidden. Jokes turned sharp, voices raised, and the laughter that once filled the room now sounded forced and bitter. One of them slammed his rifle onto the bench, swearing under his breath, before daring the woman to take another shot. The others quickly joined in, their challenge ringing through the room like a drumbeat. "Let's see if you can do it twice," one sneered. Their pride demanded that she prove herself again, yet deep down they feared she might. That fear only fueled their anger. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, whispers filling the space. Phones were raised discreetly, recording the scene as curiosity spread. People wanted to see if this quiet stranger would rise to the challenge. Was her first shot luck, or was it true skill? Every second she remained silent added to the suspense, her stillness more intimidating than any boast. Finally, with the entire range watching, she slowly opened her case again. The sound of the latch clicking echoed like a signal. The men went quiet, their eyes locked on her every movement. She loaded a single round with deliberate care, her hands steady, her breathing even. As she stepped back into position, the tension reached its peak. No one spoke. No one dared move. The moment had shifted. This was no longer just about pride or mocking a stranger. It was about something deeper, something no one could quite name, and everyone held their breath waiting for the shot. The silence was so deep that even the hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed loud. The woman stood steady, her eyes locked on the target, when suddenly the range master raised his hand. He stopped her just before she could fire. The crowd murmured in confusion, and the shooters shifted uneasily. With a serious look, the range master ordered a fresh set of targets to be placed. Not just one, but 3, spread out at different distances. Gasps rippled through the room. It wasn't a normal challenge. It was a test meant for advanced marksmen, the kind of drill that separated casual hobbyists from true professionals. The men smirked again, convinced this would finally expose her. "Let's see if she can handle that," one said under his breath, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his nerves. The woman gave no sign of hesitation. She simply adjusted her stance, checking the sights on her simple old firearm. The crowd leaned in closer, their anticipation sharpening like a drawn bowstring. It wasn't just about hitting a bullseye anymore. It was about precision, speed, and control under pressure. As she prepared, the group of snobby shooters grew restless. Their arrogance clashed with a new unease, for they realized that if she succeeded, their humiliation would be undeniable. One of them even tried to distract her, coughing loudly and muttering taunts, but she didn't flinch. Her focus was unshakable, her calm presence almost unnerving. The stakes had shifted. This was no longer about proving a single perfect shot. It was about mastery, the kind of skill that could silence every doubt in the room. And as the woman steadied her aim across the 3 targets, the entire range braced itself for what could be the most shocking moment yet. The range fell into absolute silence as the woman lifted her firearm. Her movements were fluid, steady, almost graceful, as though every step had been rehearsed countless times before. She inhaled, exhaled, and then fired. The first target snapped back with a clean hole dead in the center. Without pausing, she shifted her stance and pulled the trigger again. The second shot landed just as true, precise and unshaken. Gasps erupted from the crowd, but she wasn't finished. Her eyes narrowed as she aimed at the farthest target. With one final breath, she fired the third shot, and when the dust settled, it too bore a flawless mark in the center. The room erupted. The onlookers clapped, shouted, and even whistled, their disbelief turning into awe. Phones recorded every angle, eager to capture the unbelievable moment. The men who had mocked her earlier stood frozen, their confidence shattered. One of them dropped his rifle to the bench in frustration. Another simply turned away, unable to meet her gaze. The arrogance that had filled the room was gone, replaced with silence and a respect none of them had expected to give. But just as the crowd thought it was over, the range master stepped forward with a curious smile. He examined the 3 perfect shots and then asked the woman quietly, "Care to tell them where you learned that?" She hesitated, then shook her head with a small smile of her own. Instead of answering, she packed her simple old firearm back into its case. The twist left everyone stunned. She walked out without explanation, leaving behind more questions than answers. Was she a former champion, a hidden professional, or just someone who had practiced in secret, waiting for the right moment? No one could say for sure, but one truth was undeniable. Her single display had changed the range forever. The woman's quiet exit left the shooting range in a strange kind of silence. For the first time all day, the men who had spent hours bragging and mocking had nothing to say. Their pride had been broken not by insults, not by competition, but by the calm precision of someone they had dismissed at first glance. The onlookers, still buzzing with excitement, whispered about her as though she were a legend. Some claimed she must have been military trained. Others swore she had the poise of a champion shooter. Yet no one truly knew. The snobby shooters, humbled and restless, began packing up their gear. Their expensive rifles suddenly seemed heavy, their flashy accessories useless. A few glanced toward the door where she had disappeared, their expressions carrying something between regret and respect. None of them dared laugh anymore. For them, the lesson had come sharp and clear. Skill has nothing to do with appearances, and arrogance only blinds you from seeing real talent. The range master, still studying the targets, smiled faintly and shook his head. "That's not luck," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. He knew talent when he saw it, and hers was undeniable. But just like the rest, he was left with the mystery of who she truly was. As the crowd dispersed, people carried the story with them, retelling it in their own ways, turning her into a figure larger than life. The simple woman with the old firearm had shown that respect is earned not through loud words, but through quiet mastery. In the end, her silence spoke louder than all their boasting. One single shot had silenced an entire room, and 3 more had made sure the memory of that day would never be forgotten.